Hi everyone, welcome back to the Look at Her Now podcast. Hope everyone's been having an amazing week so far. And I know I did some reflection in the past few weeks, which is why I wanted to hop on the mic and share this topic that I'm going to share with you. And I am trying to come from a place where I don't have all the answers, but I think the first step in any kind of change or improvement that anybody wants to make in their life is definitely recognition of what's your current habit, what's your current pattern right now. And then the second step is how can we reframe that challenge? How can we reframe for something better? I'm also joined by someone very special today, my toy slash cushion avocado. He smells like lavender and he also warms up in the microwave. So you know what they say, they're good when you want some comfort, and hopefully he's not too distracting. I've heard some good reviews coming in just from the word of mouth, and I appreciate anybody who's taking any amount of time to come and listen to my podcast. I know there's tons of options out there on the internet, so I do not take it lightly for sure. And the goal here is to always keep on building the community, keep on talking to each other, figure out what's going on, and just never stop having the conversations that I think are very necessary to have. So, on that note, I have been reflecting in the past few weeks of certain habits and certain things that make me feel a certain way, like almost every day. It's like almost every day can feel like the same day. It's like on repeat because we know that 90% of the thoughts that happen on a day-to-day basis are repetitive and they occur almost every day. So we know that we are stuck in the loop of our own thoughts. So not only do those thoughts lend themselves into an uprise in emotions, however small or big they might be within us, they also create certain habits. A few weeks ago, where I was indulging in not some good habits, and I completely stopped myself in the tracks. I'm like, what is happening here? And when I got to the bottom of it, I'm like, oh, like I know what I'm doing to myself right now. Like this action that I'm choosing to do, it's sending such signals into my brain that I didn't even think about it in this way. And it completely shifted my mind into looking into how I spend my time. And I do want to make an analogy is that if you've all heard of this repetitive thing, maybe back in science class in grade 8, 9, 10, whatever, is that it's the Newton's laws of motion. We've all heard every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Like, how many times have you guys heard that? And it's like, oh, a car in motion stays in motion, like all these examples. And like, that's literally what I want to compare my epiphany to, but something more realistic, something that's more applicable to everyday life and to just everyday scenarios that I think are sneaky. Every action we take shows our brain who we are choosing to be in the moment and in the day. And then over time, over several weeks, several months, until it becomes a part of who we are. So let me give you guys an example here. And I will dive into many more examples through this episode, but I'll start with something very simple. So if any of you or me choose to go on a walk, and a walk is as simple as just getting outside of your apartment, in that moment, maybe your reason is like, oh, I gotta get my steps in. Even if your reason is to just get your steps in, what that action indirectly showing to your brain is that you want to take care of yourself. Maybe you put a promise on yourself that every day you will aim for 10,000 steps. And now you're showing your brain, I commit to my promise and I come back to my promise even in micro moments of the day. And whether it takes 15 minutes or 50 minutes, I get it done. Let that sink in. A simple action like a walk makes our brain rewire into thinking who we are becoming. And I saw that happening to me just out of out of sheer dumb luck of doing a few things over and over again. Some of those things are not as good, but some of those things are good. So it's a mix of balance. So I do want to share the both sides of the coins and what they've shown my brain personally. And a little bit of backstory here. The reason why I started feeling this thought of like, wow, like every action I'm taking is showing something to my brain indirectly, whether I choose it or not. And it came out because I was having a lot of unfulfilled days that I was running on autopilot because that's just my default. And I think so many of us run on default. While that's not the worst, while that's not bad, I think a lot of default can be categorized as negative in people's life. At least sometimes in my life, some aspects of my default mode are negative because of the lack of systems I have in my life. And because of those lack of systems, I in turn do not do the habits or activities that can uplift me, can heal me in a better way, instead of taking out the energy from within me. I personally don't believe in like there's going to be one drastic change in my life that's going to change everything for me and I'm going to become so efficient. And I think that's why I was feeling so unfulfilled, because I am such a deep believer in making small habits and small changes to uplift who you are. Like even like starting any sort of creative projects that I've started, they've always taken little bit of time every day. So when I was not indulging in activities that bring me more of that satisfaction, more of awareness, more of a connect to myself. When I was not indulging in those activities, I felt far away from myself. I'm like, this is not who I am. So number one example, what's my noise? What's something I've drawn myself on? Social media. I think I've talked about this so much before, and I think everybody here listening to this can relate. So for example, I commute by a train. So oftentimes I get 30 to 40 minutes of blocks in a day, both in the morning and the evening by myself. Like I'm not driving, I'm completely free to think whatever I want, do whatever I want. And certain times during my commute, I am being productive. I'm editing, I'm planning out, I'm writing, and I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. But then more often than not, whether I choose it or not, my default becomes to scroll. And I've recognized that by doing this habit, I sort of feel defeated. And I am basically telling my brain that, hey, let's tune out of your own life and let's indulge in other people's lives online. Like, let's completely forget about your own life and let's just drown myself into this noise of all this millions of people, what they're living, what they're doing at every single moment of the day. And by basically doing this, I'm indirectly signaling to my brain, I choose to not focus on what I am feeling. I choose to ignore that, and I'm basically telling my brain, I do not honor my own time, because if I honored my time, that is not how I would choose to spend it. Because who wants to not live their own life versus just keep on living virtually through other people's life? And that was the biggest sign of disrespect that I got on my end. So every time I'm scrolling on social media now, look, I am human. I cannot put the phone down a lot of times. So every time I'm scrolling it, but there's a reminder in me, because I've created this awareness in my brain. There's a reminder in my brain now. You're choosing to disrespect your time. Sometimes it's for research. I do make social media content. So sometimes it is for research. I have to go on there to find the sounds, to find the trends, to see how people edit and like keep their phones and how do they record. So yes, it's also from a study perspective sometimes, but more often than not, as I said, it comes from this lack of being able to tap into myself and then choosing the easier way out, which is, let's look at other people's lives and let's just drown out the noise. This is becoming a pattern. So the more I go into my default mode, the more I do not question the why behind what I'm doing, the more easier it is for me to be lost as someone that I do not recognize. Over time, the default that we pick during certain points in our day keep on coming back in the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, until it's a week and a month. And before we know it, we're hooked to the same habit, and now we're questioning, why am I still this boring person? Why am I still this uninteresting person? Why am I still the person who set out all these articles that I wanted to read, but I could never get onto it? Why have I become to the person that I always said I'll go to Barnes and Nobles once a week and I have never gone? Why have I become this person who said I was going to go home and cook myself a big dinner, a big nourishing dinner, and I haven't done that? And the why starts before you even get to the tasks. So moving on to example number 2, moving my body. I know I have mentioned this a bajillion times by now, how movement is such a core part of who I am, but there are days that I don't get up and I do not make the move. So today was one of those days, for example, and I just couldn't imagine myself rushing in the morning at 7 a.m. and just getting out, eating breakfast in a hurry. I just needed to slow down today. Majority of the time, when I do choose to move and I know that I enjoy it, but it's not enjoyable in the moment. It's not enjoyable when I have to bike in the cold to get to the train and then to get to my gym, which hopefully might change soon, but that's my path right now. And I know that when I get to the gym, I'm going to have to do things that are hard. It's not easy, but I choose to do it. And yes, it has become such a core part of who I am that I just do it in a default mode. And now this is a default mode that is good because it's making me do something that's productive, that's good for my mental health, and that's good for my physical health, that's good for my longevity, that's good for my social connections, because you go out in public and you see people and you just feel good about, thank God I showed up. Anyways, so my why has become strong. It has become a core part of who I am, but it's still hard on days, especially the moment I have to get out of bed and roll out of the warmth of the blanket into the restroom and do my skincare all over again, as I do Monday to Friday. It's a lot. I know that by choosing discomfort, I'm basically choosing growth. I'm choosing better health for my overall life. And that's exactly what my brain is learning indirectly by me indulging into those actions on a continuous basis and on a majority basis. Isn't that so fun? We're basically teaching our brain by these small habits and these micro moments and these micro decisions we make in a day, all these things about ourselves. So the brain is learning by what we do and what choices we make. And sometimes it's playing the devil's advocate. It's like, don't do this, just chill out, don't go to the gym, just have an easy day. Sometimes it's telling you, if you go, you're going to end up feeling much better. So again, all this back and forth doesn't have to go on every day if the default itself is to go and do the hard thing so that we can be healthier in the long term. And that's exactly what I want to keep on showing my brain. And that's why I choose to do this. Okay, moving on to example number 3. So this one is very important to me. It's food. I love food. I use it to nourish myself, to fuel myself as much as I can. Because it's very interesting, because when I started to deep dive into this topic, I understood that the food psychology is going crazier than I ever thought. And I think I have thought of this before, but this time with an added layer. So every time I make a food choice, I think I'm showing my brain something. So breakfast is one of those times where we do not have time to think about anything else but to just get up and get rushing out the door. So I do not have the liberty on most days to keep on thinking of a big breakfast. By choosing something that's easily repeatable, easily accessible, and easily available in the kitchen, I'm showing my brain that I like predictable food. I like something that's not too picky, but I want to get my morning started. So it's not about a decision of desire, it's about a decision of routine. I'm just telling my brain, this is not something where you're gonna get creative. This is your time to just get moving. That's okay. I can show my brain that. But on days that I do partake, to indulge in a tasty bagel, a delicious cinnamon roll, I'm telling my brain that I sometimes break out of the rigorous structures of my breakfast and I indulge in novelty, and my brain knows that I can take care of myself in a fun way too. Like, it all doesn't have to be rigorous and boring all the time every day. So it's funny because all of our food choices are coming from some place of psychological convenience, worth, or whatever it is. For example, during dinners, I usually try to really understand what am I craving and then make something, at least majority of the times. So I think I'm telling my brain that this is my time. Like, I own this time, and I'm choosing creativity, and I'm choosing indulgence. So I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to rush. And I'm telling my brain this meal means something to me. It means that I want to reclaim my time. I want to reclaim my creativity in the kitchen. So it's so funny because, on like a special occasion, when it's somebody's birthday or we're celebrating something, what we're showing by indulging in the food there is that, wow, what a grand time I'm having here with all these amazing people. And maybe we're celebrating a cultural festival. And by indulging in the treats around us, we're showing our brain that, wow, I love tasting foods from different cultures. I love being close to, different spice palettes, and just understanding the complexities of these baked goods sometimes. It's so funny, but it does happen. It doesn't happen like very consciously where my brain is recognizing that. I personally would categorize them as unsaid rules, unspoken rules within our brain. So, at least for me, I have been able to dissect what food means for me during different parts of the day, from convenience to indulgence to intuition. I know what I'm choosing to eat is telling my brain, am I choosing convenience? Am I choosing something that's out of habit? Am I choosing something that's out of intuition? And by doing so, my brain knows what's my priority here. Because if I always choose out of convenience, always keep on picking food from fast food places or food from outside without putting any thought or care into it, my brain knows all I care about is convenience. I don't really care about how it makes me feel. I don't care about how it fuels me. So I think everything is needed in balance. You can always choose to change the narrative, as I think I am also, learning what I'm choosing and maybe change it. Example number 4. So I love listening to podcasts, hence the whole reason I started this podcast. Um, Anyways, so there are pockets in the day where I turn on the podcast, any podcast. It could be an informational podcast, it could be just a besties chat podcast where it's like catching up with best friends. So basically, in the first scenario where I'm divulging into something that's more informational, that's something more educational, I'm telling my brain that I'm setting aside this pocket of day to learn something, to get to know about a topic that I've been wanting to do research on, but I haven't gotten around to it. So, podcast is my best way to be able to do that. So, for example, I wake up and usually I really need that motivation to be able to perform several tasks right away in the morning to get my day started. And it's the first thing sometimes I do. Maybe it's not a good of a habit. Is I tune into a podcast, and by tuning into the podcast, I'm choosing learning from the get go. I know a lot of people like to just be zen, don't like to listen to anything. I am like that sometimes, but the weekdays I really need a push to get going. So yes, I do tune in, and by listening to familiar voices, I feel more at calm and know that the world is functioning the way it is. And by listening to the host, I know that they're showing up for themselves. That means I need to show up for myself no matter how hard it is. When they're talking about moving their body, I'm like, I want to move my body. So it's all of this like positive loop that's happening. And I do that. I listen to it even sometimes through my workout. So again, I'm choosing to tell my brain I'm choosing double growth here, is that I'm moving my body, but I'm also learning something while I'm doing it. And I've worked out for so long that sometimes music just doesn't cut it. At this point, I can just do it without sometimes even listening to music. Sometimes music can sound repetitive to my ears. So hence the podcast. Sometimes during small pockets of the day where I'm walking and I'm tuning into a podcast instead of scrolling. Again, I'm showing my brain that I choose learning and growth over mindless scrolling. For example, I was listening to Alyssa Lynch's episode on Transform podcast and also The Bostics by Lauren Bostic. And just and the reason why I listen to her like multiple times is that I listened to her on the first podcast. I'm like, this is giving such a girl's chat, and I'm like, I really need to go listen to her on another podcast. And I'm crazy like that. When I like people, I keep on wanting to learn more about them, and sometimes one podcast episode doesn't do it justice. Anyways, that's to show that I'm choosing human connection during that time because I feel connected to what she's saying, to what. So when I resonate with somebody, I like to keep that connection going. And yeah, it's just a fun way. It's not too serious. It just makes me feel less lonely in what I'm doing and makes me feel more of like, oh, we're all in this together. You cannot listen to podcasts all the time, and neither should anybody scroll all the time, which is why our default during different times of the day needs to be different for sure. Example number 5, here we go. So I've been playing pickleball for a little while and I did not grow up athletic at all. So every time I go to play pickleball and I am brushing up on my skills, I'm honing my skills. Maybe you guys are doing some other skillful activities. Maybe you're dancing, you're singing, you're writing, you're playing an instrument like a guitar, or you're playing maybe a different sports. Every time you're showing up for something that's more creative and something that's more of a skill that's not needed for your your schoolwork or your 9 to 5, you're showing your brain that I choose learning through creativity right now. So for me, when I show up on the code, I know I'm not telling myself consciously this. Again, I've analyzed these situations now because I'm doing this podcast, is that I'm indirectly showing my brain is that I'm choosing to learn, to put myself in an uncomfortable situation, to put myself in a competitive situation so that I get this, I want to win sort of mindset. And I'm showing my brain that I'm choosing human connection because it's so easy to connect to humans and to chat away when you're around other people who are like-minded, frankly. And all of these little things that I'm showing my brain by just showing up for a simple activity like pickleball, they so far outweigh like any expectation I could ever put on myself by listing these things A to Z. Go show for a human connection, go do this, go do that. No, if we're going to show our brain that we take care of ourselves and we love ourselves, we're committed to growing, we want to show that by some activities and by some actions that are actually creating that change in our life that we want to see. Okay, I'm going to combine these last 2 points in one because I think they hit the same nerve for me. The art of fashion, or the art of taking care of yourself, especially of how you look. Yes, literally your aesthetics. So I used to think that it's not too important to focus on how you look from the outside, as long as I'm healthy from the inside. And that could sound like an excuse. So for me, like indulging in a really expensive haircut was like, what's the purpose? It's just hair. They're sometimes long. They're sometimes, you don't always need a haircut. But then over time, I've learned that no, my external appearance does make an impact because this shows how far am I taking myself seriously. Like, do I actually care about how I look? And my looks they could be a part of validation, but they're also a part of showing my brain, do I care about how I show up for myself in my day-to-day life? And I think I do. My value is that I do care about how I look because it makes me look put together. It makes me look that I am actually putting in effort into myself. If I am putting in effort in the gym to be healthy on the inside, that means I can also put effort to look good on the outside. So for me, like, I think fashion has been one of those things where I'm less risky and more safe, and that doesn't lend me into trying something new a lot of times. So I noticed this a while ago where I'm like, oh my god, all I'm wearing is muted tones. And I think, and this was like a while ago, and I'm remembering it now because I'm recalling that information. And I had a talk with ChatGPT about this, like maybe a year ago at this point, is that I feel like I don't have anything colorful. Like everything is black, gray, white. And I'm like, what is that about? What does that tell about me? And we had a discussion, and it was basically that it's basically telling your brain that I want to be not seen, I want to stay hidden, and I don't want the spotlight on me at all. And that's real. Some part of me doesn't want to um allow other people to talk anything about my body. So by wearing muted tones, maybe I hide that. And it's such a deep rooted psychological thing that happens that I'm not doing consciously, but because it's a default mode that I have in my brain. So by doing this action of wearing muted tones and not trying something risky, I'm again reaffirming the bias in my brain, the default bias in my brain that I choose not to be seen. I choose not to be risky. I choose to play it safe. Like for me, it was all about, oh, you need to be intelligent. You need to be, more hardworking. You need to be successful. You need to be healthier inside. And so the external factors took a backseat. And for the first time ever, I think now that I'm 23, I'm realizing my external factors matter as much as my internal factors. And I think it's fair for me to say that out loud because I want to look good just because I want to appreciate myself. I want to thank myself for all the effort that goes into getting ready. I want my hair to look like I've just gotten a blowout all like every day because I want to show up as my future version because every time I see my future version, she's always put together. She's going to meetings and businesses and she's always looking fantastic while doing those. So these are just small examples of how any of us can, by default, stay in our lanes, for the lack of better words, or stay in a mindset and actions that are really not serving us to who and what our values are, but they're more so happening just because of the default that they've been primed to. There's a lot of actions in my life that I'm not okay with. I'm like, I actually don't want to show my brain this because my future version, she's not doing that. So why am I doing that? And it's just a self-reflection of how we all need to maybe just be more cognizant, more aware. Awareness is so important. Awareness is the key here because I can be aware and change takes time. So if there's any example or multiple examples that have popped into your brain or you've been able to relate to what I said, you're like, you know what? I do that too. I did not know I was showing my brain this all this time. And please feel free to share this with me. I would love to have a chat with you. I'll put my TikTok and Instagram in the description below. So feel free to connect with me there. Send me a DM. Happy to chat. But yeah, it's been so fun talking to you guys. And one last example before you guys turn this off. So by choosing to do this podcast, what I'm showing to myself is that I'm committed to keeping my promise. Number one is that I set out a goal and I'm going to do it consistently. We don't know the end goal here, but it's okay to figure it out. And another thing I'm showing myself is that I'm committed to building the community that I've always wanted and I've always yearned for. And another thing that I'm choosing here is that indirectly is that I am choosing discomfort, even though it takes a lot on some days to do this. I'm telling my brain indirectly that it's okay to uh, do a lot of work, not knowing if there's a big reward in the end, because I'm learning so much in the process that it's still okay. And there's so many things that I'm indirectly showing my brain every time I show up onto this mic. And that's just a testament of how our whole day, if broken down, is building these small, teeny tiny core identities of who we are. And if repeated over weeks and months, that's who we become. Basically, that's what makes us adult human beings or children human beings. I know my younger sister is listening to this, so I have to give credit to the young teens here. If that is the goal you have this year, is to get closer to the future version of you, I think this is an absolute must activity you need to do, and sit down with yourself and identify, why am I doing this? You don't even need to sit down. Every time you do something, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is this showing my brain? Is this something I really want to do, or am I doing this out of default? And quickly pull yourself back. Awareness is the first step, change is the second. Again, I'm so happy that you guys are here and that you tuned into listening to me, and that we keep on having more fun conversations with each other on this mic. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining me on the Look It In Our podcast. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and whatever you're doing, if it's just early in the day, if it's midday, if it's evening, don't forget to do one thing that does actually make you feel closer to who you are. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you guys so much. Bye.